everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for January the 13th, 2020. This was night 2 of AEW's New Year's Smash special. Over on NXT, we had several matches to kick off the 2021 Dusty Rhodes Classic. I'll talk about NXT a little bit at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that if you're curious about NXT. I'm not going to say too much, but I'll give a few thoughts on what's going on in NXT. Let's start off with Dynamite. Shout out to the chat room, everybody watching this live. I appreciate your viewership and support. We kicked off Dynamite with Eddie Kingston versus Pac. Pac went right after Eddie Kingston, even as his pyro was still going off. This was personal. You had some interference on the outside from Butcher and Blade. They were providing a distraction, and the bunny went after Pac's eyes. You had Eddie Kingston going towards the neck, working over the neck of Pac, but after some back and forth for a few minutes, Pac managed to hit the Black Arrow to pick up the victory. And then after the match, Pac, he was not done. He wanted to deliver more punishment to Eddie. He put on the brutalizer, but then Butcher and Blade got in the ring. There was a standoff. The Lucha Brothers were there. Lance Archer showed up. Eddie's team took a hike, and Jake Roberts had to calm things down a little bit. Archer and Pac were having some words. Match was fine. No real issues with it. We had Miro in a one-on-one match with Chuck Taylor, and the stipulation for this match was if Chuck Taylor lost, he would have to become Miro's servant. Best boy, whatever they call it. During the match, you had Kip Sabian out there providing some interference. He had a cutout, a cardboard cutout of Trent. And Taylor sent Miro into the ringside wall. Seemed to be doing good pretty early on. Miro got sent into the ring post. But then Kip Sabian went after Orange Cassidy. That provided a distraction. Miro gained the upper hand. And it was pretty much a squash at this point. Miro hit the, I guess, formerly known as the Mashka kick, whatever they're calling it now, just the kick. And then hit the game over to pick up the victory. Pretty much what it should have been. Miro should be dominating these guys and picking up easy wins. And now, Chuck Taylor, this was predictable. I mean, I figured this is the way the storyline's going to end up, with Chuck being the servant of Miro. Now he'll have to do whatever Miro wants for the next several weeks, 30 days, whatever it is. Backstage, we had an interview segment with Matt Hardy and Private Party. Matt Hardy is now the manager for Private Party, and he was wearing a suit. He was being all heelish, talking about how they're going to become multi-millionaires now, but Mark Quinn referred to Matt as a money-grabbing carny. Well, why did you sign with him? But Matt was like very much on the defensive at this point, saying that he's going to help them. They were nothing until he got paired up with them. So I guess now Matt is Big Money Matt. He's a heel character, manager, whatever. And we'll see what happens with him in Private Party. We had a segment with the Inner Circle to talk about their 2021 New Year's resolutions. Basically, they're going to be bigger than last year. Jake Hager said they're going to win championships. MJF said that they're going to be stronger. They're going to have a stronger bond than ever before. And he vowed to get rid of fat people. They must go. And then MJF talked about him and Chris Jericho winning the tag team titles. Sammy Guevara got upset about this, basically calling Chris Jericho a tag team slut. Jericho's teaming up with everybody. It used to be Sammy and Jericho as a team, but now Jericho's teaming up with Hager, teaming up with MJF. What's going on here? Is Chris Jericho going to team up with Snoop Dogg next? Sammy wondered. And Jericho said that any of them can win the tag team titles in the Inner Circle, and a three-way tag team match between the members of the Inner Circle was announced for next week. Jericho teaming up with MJF, Santana and Ortiz as another team, and then Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager as the third team. And MJF finished the promo by saying nothing can break them up next week. It's all about friendly competition. The winning team will become the tag team to represent the Inner Circle going for the tag titles. Nick Lavin in the chat says Sammy Guevara face turn eventually, maybe. Possibly, I could see that happening, although Sammy does a really good job just being this arrogant character. Although he does so many flashy moves, he would work well as a babyface. I'm still wondering when MJF is going to turn against Jericho, or they're going to do something to keep this storyline moving forward. Gary says, I think the booking for the Inner Circle has honestly been pretty decent. I like how they're teasing the split, loving the storyline in this. And Kim Hall says Santana and Ortiz deserve better. I like it. I just want to see it kick into high gear. Like, I feel it's moving a little bit too slow right now. I want to see things move into high gear, but we do have the Revolution pay-per-view coming up pretty soon, and I'm guessing at that point we'll start to see something develop with the Inner Circle members and some kind of split. I mean, if anybody's turning face, I think it has to be Jericho, which is funny enough because Jericho is not exactly the internet darling right now. People have been down on Chris Jericho, and Jericho revealed during his podcast that he tested positive for COVID-19 back in September, and he did not miss any episodes of Dynamite. Now, they were taping every other week, and Jericho said he was home for 10 days, so he somehow could have managed to pass a test before the Dynamite tapings, and then right after he tested positive and then stayed home for 10 days and then was able to test negative and be on the next Dynamite taping. It's possible that worked out for him. But yeah, interesting development. Chris Jericho did have COVID apparently, and he said he had no symptoms of it. You can read details on that over on NoDQ.com. And Curtis Butler says, I would rather have Sammy and Santana and Ortiz move on to the trios belt as faces. I would like that. I still want to see those trios titles, whether it's in AEW or if WWE did it. I think WWE would need to merge some titles first, but I've been wanting to see trios titles for a while now. We had a backstage interview with the Dark Order, and they said everything they do now is in Brody Lee's name. And it appears like they're faces now. They brought in Adam Page to have a drink, and they want Adam Page in the Dark Order. They're hoping he'll join. Page said he'll let them know next week after their tag team match. Page is going to team up with them next week, and then he'll make a decision if he is going to join the Dark Order or not. We had a video package for Brian Cage challenging Darby Allin for the TNT title. That was the main event of this show. And Gary says Dark Order being a face group makes the perfect sense right now. I agree with that, Gary. There's really no way for them to be heels at this point after the whole thing with Brody Lee and that tribute and everything. They got to be a face group now. We had the Elite backstage, Kenny Omega, Don Callis, and the Young Bucks, and the Bucks wondered if they were going to go out together, and Don Callis is like, well, no, you guys have a cool entrance, we'll do our separate entrances. So Kenny Omega had his entrance, Justin Roberts doing the whole thing, the whole introduction for him, and Don Callis took over and introduced Kenny's tag team partners, his best friends in the world, the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Swerve. So we had Anderson and Gallows, their first official match in AEW. They are the reigning Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champs. They teamed up with Kenny and the Bucks, along with Tony Khan. They were in the back, shocked at what happened here, this development. We had a tag team match, 6-man tag team match. The opponents, the enhancement talent, although they had a pretty good showing. Danny Limelight, and then the Varsity Blondes, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison. Faces actually did pretty well in this match, all things considered. They did get some offense, but in the end, Anderson and Gallows hit the Magic Killer to pin Limelight. Pretty much immediately when the match ended, Jon Moxley arrived looking for some payback. He went right into the ring to fight the three guys. He was not afraid of it being 3-on-1. He did get overwhelmed, but then the Lucha Brothers made the save. Maybe we're going to see Lucha Brothers versus Anderson and Gallows at some point. Pentagon was in Impact Wrestling for a while, former world champion. And the locker room ran down trying to separate Moxley and Omega. The Bucks arrived to try and calm Moxley down. You know, they're still friends with Omega, so, you know, this storyline where the Bucks are kind of conflicted. Which side are they on? Are they on the good side or are they on the bad side? You know, they're trying to stay friends with Omega. But then the Lucha Brothers, they got the history. They super kicked the Bucks and sent them out of the ring. So interesting segment here. Definitely one of the highlights of the show. I like the swerve with the Good Brothers. So yeah, pretty solid stuff here this Sunday. Omega teams up with the Good Brothers to go against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. That's on Fight TV if you're interested in watching it. Hard to Kill, Impact's pay-per-view. Kim Hall says, I loved the camera on Tony Khan looking like he was surprised and didn't know what was going on. And Gary says, I love the twist. That was totally unexpected, honestly. Next up, we had Britt Baker's segment, The Waiting Room, which this was an interesting segment because I've seen a lot of people praise it. I was having mixed feelings about this one. It kind of felt to me like if you used to watch Tuesday Night Titans back in the day, in the 1980s, and I'm really dating myself referencing a wrestling show from the 80s, but they had these really cheesy segments, interview talk segments, and that's basically what this was. I mean, it felt like, you know, Piper's Pit, like trying to be like Piper's Pit or the Brother Love show, you know, something from the 80s. I mean, it was really over the top. And Britt Baker was making fun of various people, making fun of the audience, like teasing them that there was a prize under their chair when there was nothing there. And she made a joke about Cody's neck tattoo. Cody was the special guest, and Britt Baker and Reba, they had little pyro effects for Cody. And she brought in a second guest, which was Jade Cargill. Of course, she's aligned with Shaq in the storyline, and she said nobody gives a damn about Brandy Rhodes being pregnant, and if Brandy ever returns, she's gonna beat that ass. She pie-faced Cody. Red Velvet showed up and slapped Jade, and then Jade slapped her back. There was this big brawl. There were various women trying to separate this, and then Thunder Rosa appeared on the video screen and said that Tony Khan wants a match with them. He sees it as a big match, and it was officially announced for the Beach Break edition of Dynamite. I believe it's February 3rd. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And there was a big graphic on the screen, and Britt Baker was freaking out, very over the top. It was cheesy. I guess it was entertaining, but yeah, if WWE, see, here's the thing. If WWE, and that's Jeff Meacham's line, see, here's the thing. If WWE did something like this, everybody would be shitting on it, saying this is terrible. But when AEW gets it, do they get a pass? I mean, I think it was just as lame as anything else that WWE would put on TV. It was very over the top and cheesy, in my opinion. And yes, it is February 3rd. And yeah, Red Velvet is basically, replacing Brandy Rhodes in this storyline. And she was already aligned with Brandy. Brandy was mentoring her, I suppose. And Gary says Britt needs to be AEW Women's Champion soon, I hope. Once again, no AEW Women's Champion on this show. We had the Jurassic Express come out, and I believe they had this music on Dark. First time I've heard it. They have new music. And I did not know what it was. So my first impression, I know what it is now. It's from the 80s. It's an actual song called Tarzan Boy. But my first impression was, what is this? Some soundtrack from a lousy 1980s movie? That was my first impression of it. So I'm not big on the AEW theme songs, but I did like Jurassic Express's song. I was starting to grow on it. So yeah, I never heard this Tarzan Boy song before ever in my life. Never heard it before. But hey, it's Tarzan Boy and Jungle Boy, he's like Tarzan, so all right then. Just it feels weird to me. Like I feel like it should at least be modernized or something for 2020. It sounds out of place in my opinion. But again, maybe it'll grow on me over time, just like their previous song did. Steve-O says Tarzan Boy was used in the third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Well, that's probably the issue because I think I only saw the first one. And that might be blasphemy because I'm a 90s kid and I should have been watching all those movies. But I played the video game, I saw the first movie, but that was probably about it. I watched the TV show a little bit. So anyways, we had Jurassic Express against FTR, and Tully Blanchard was basically the difference maker, which is kind of unfortunate that FTR needs Tully's help to beat Marco Stunt, but hey, it is what it is. Tully shoved Marco into the ring post, and then Jungle Boy was sent into the barricade, leaving Marco all alone. FTR hit the Big Red, which used to be known as the Goodnight Express. They changed the finisher name in honor of Brody Lee. It's a classy thing to do. They're heels, but I'll overlook it. It's a nice gesture. So Big Red to pin Marco, and not much to say about this one. Pretty much went exactly how I figured it would go once Luchasaurus was pulled from the match. And Gary says, this was actually my most favorite match of the night. If I can be honest, Marco Stunt actually really impressed me the most in that match. Game is on 100 says, Kevin Nash as Super Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. Okay, maybe I've seen the second one because I seem to remember Kevin Nash. I would have had to have watched it at some point just to see Nash in it. But I definitely did not see the third one. Right at 9:30, can you guys take a wild guess as to what was in the 9:30 spot? Well, it was a women's match. Go figure. Ty Conti, she was accompanied by Anna Jay, and then the Dark Order came out on the stage for moral support. It was Conti versus Serena Deeb for the NWA Championship. Conti had a pretty good showing here. Pump kick sent Deeb to the outside, and then Conti got a near fall, but Deeb managed to pick up the win with the Deeb Talks, her finishing move. Match was fine, but can they at some point have a women's match take place, like to open the show or close the show? Like, heaven forbid they actually close the show with a women's match. I mean, I guess they need a strong division to do that. Gary says, LOL, only in AEW do we see a women's match with the ongoing routine. 9:30 is women's matches. They need to improve this badly. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's just a pattern. I think the other week when Omega was in the main event, they changed it slightly. But other than that, like, it's been pretty much in the 9:30 spot, 9:20 to 9:30 every single week. We had our main event of the evening for the TNT Championship, Brian Cage versus Darby Allin. And this was pretty entertaining because Brian Cage was just beating the shit out of Darby Allin. Darby went for a tope, he got caught, and Cage suplexed him on the floor, and then he got Darby back in the ring, picked him up for a press slam, and just tossed him all the way to the announce table, and Allin crashed through the table, got busted open in the process, and then Cage continued to show his strength. He picked up Darby and just carried him as he was marching up the steps, brought him back in the ring, triple powerbomb Darby, then picked up Darby again and powerbombed him onto the stage, brought him back into the ring, but Darby kicked out at 1. Darby flipped off Cage. He would not stay down, and Darby managed to somehow get back into the match. Cage had set up the steel steps on the outside, and Darby started biting the fingers of Cage on the apron. Cage fell onto the steps, and then Darby did the coffin drop to the outside onto Cage, who was lying on the steps. And he managed to tie up Cage's feet together with a belt for a short time. Cage eventually got free. At this point, things were looking like Darby Allin might pull off a victory. So you had Hook providing a distraction. Ricky Starks interfered, physically getting involved in the match. And that's when the lights went out. Sting appeared to even the odds. Sting attacked Starks with a baseball bat. And then Darby hit a crucifix bomb to pin Brian Cage. Now, I'll give my thoughts on this in a second. The game is on 100 with $2. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, the NXT women get put on all time slots, unlike AEW. Sad. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see things changed up with that for sure. And thank you again for the super chat. Interestingly enough, I really enjoyed the main event, although I was thinking to myself, you know, Cage is looking so dominant here and he's going to end up losing. You know, kind of reminds me of, you know, Brock Lesnar coming in and dominating John Cena only to lose in the end. Now, the way this was done, I thought was all right because Sting got involved and, you know, that helped turn the tide for Darby. But yeah, like I was thinking to myself when Cage is dominating this match, like, he should not be losing to Darby Allin. Like, he's destroying this guy. This guy is, like, the man. Like, I believe he could beat anybody in AEW, and he should not be losing to Darby. But he did end up losing, and I think it was done well under the circumstances. But, yeah, I mean, Cage could be a top guy in AEW. Just the raw power. He had that Brock Lesnar vibe on this show, in my opinion. But would Brock Lesnar be losing to Spike Dudley? You tell me. So anyways, guys, show was not bad. I didn't think it was a great Dynamite by any stretch. Maybe a little bit disappointing for a so-called special edition of Dynamite. Main event was really solid, and I did enjoy the match with Kenny Omega teaming up with the Good Brothers and the whole post-match brawl. So there were some pretty good things on this show. I'm going to give it a B- this week. Slightly better than Raw. Not as good as some of the other Dynamites over the past year, but it was all right. Gary gives the show a B+. Don gives it a B, Lewis with a B, Kim Hall with a B, and Nick Glavin with a B. So looking like B's pretty across the board here in the chat room. Marvin and Curtis Butler also giving it a B, and Steve-O is like a B or B-, and CC Drink with a B-. So pretty solid reviews for AEW Dynamite. Now, NXT real quick, we had the Dusty Classic. We had 3 matches in the Dusty Classic, and maybe the biggest news of the show, the debut of MSK, formerly known as the Rascals in Impact Wrestling. And of course, they picked up the win in their Dusty Classic match, so they'll be advancing. I have one issue with all this, and that's 2 tournaments. Like, I think it's really cool that they're doing a women's tournament, but they should just be doing a women's tournament. 2 tournaments going on at the same time, in my opinion, is overkill. Like, I'm all for tag team wrestling and tournaments and whatnot, but when you're doing 2 at the same time, you know, just like doing 2 Elimination Chamber matches on one show, or 2 Hell in a Cell matches, or even 3 sometimes, like, I think it's a bit much, in my opinion. So if it was me, I would have stuck with just 1. And I would have done a women's one, just to change it up this year. I like that they're doing that. But yeah, 2 is a little bit too much for me. And Steve-O does agree, yeah, 2 tournaments is a bit much. Anybody know what MSK stands for? Any clue maybe? See, I'm not really that familiar with the Rascals, so I don't know what that might be a reference to. But if anybody in the chat room has an idea, let me know. Gary says, my God, I hate their name. I hope they buy the right to the Rascals. As for the 2 tournaments, way too much. I agree. And the other thing, it looks like we're getting a build-up for Pete Dunne challenging Finn Balor for the championship. Pete Dunne looks to be next in line. Should be a good match with those guys. Not sure when that's going to happen. Next week is the pit fight, which was originally scheduled for last week. That'll be a good reason to tune in next week. Tommaso Ciampa taking on Timothy Thatcher. Fight Pit 2. First one was really good. Second one should be solid. That will be next week. Looking in the chat room, Marcus Metcalf says Mean Street Crew probably. And then Steve O.J. says Mystery Science Nights, ? Yeah, who knows? I have no idea like what that name might be referencing, but maybe we'll get a clue at some point on NXT television. Anyways, guys, that's all I got for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate your viewership and support. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the NoDQ review. We'll be using new software this week, so hopefully we don't have the technical issues that have plagued us for the last couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. I'll be back for Smackdown. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. And take care, everybody. Stay positive. Be safe, and I will see you all